Welcome back to the Game Collection. I am SuperDerek, and this is Dark Souls.
Whoa. Hey, Derek. What's this all about, reviewing Dark Souls without me?
Jimmy? I didn't know you liked Dark Souls.
Well, of course, man. Dark Souls and I go way back. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Painted worlds enveloped in eternal moonlight. Golden cities abandoned by the gods who once inhabited them. I have walked on the surface of the sun and conquered darkness that could only be conjured up in the most frightening of nightmares. Plus, I did a review on the art book a few years back, so I think that gives me major street cred.
Who knew? Well, maybe we should go together. It's dangerous to go alone after all.
Oh yes, the lands of Dark Souls can truly be treacherous. You never know what or who will be your undoing.
Dark Souls is a spiritual successor to Demon's Souls, which in turn was a spiritual successor to the King's Field series. It's a Japanese-developed Western action RPG developed by From Software that was released in 2011. The game is notoriously difficult, but to skilled and dedicated players, it provides a rich and rewarding experience. In Dark Souls, the land of Lordaeron is witnessing the end of the Age of Fire, a time of prosperity brought about by Lord Gwyn. Some humans are marked with the curse of the Dark Sign, turned undead, and are doomed to wait out the end of the world, losing their minds to madness and despair as they turn hollow. It is said that thou who art undead art chosen, and that through facing trials, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. It is with this cryptic message and a few scraps of equipment that you are sent out into the world where you might fulfill the prophecy, and die trying. In Dark Souls, very little is given to the player, and everything else must be scraped for and pieced together from fragments. This extends to everything from the battle mechanics to equipment to even the lore of Lordaeron. Every inch of progress must be earned. Because of this, during your first playthrough, much of the plot's subtleties will be lost to you. In fact, you'll probably miss lots of things, and that's alright. The delivery of the story is, because of this, somewhat difficult to evaluate, at least at first glance. Depending on how far you dig, the story may feel only superficial, or through investigation you'll find a sprawling network of depressing lore and plot twists. Every enemy, every item of the game, it seems, has a backstory that you can unravel through diligent reading of item descriptions and inference. The result is that every location, every building, every passageway, it seems, holds some story or significance that's just waiting to be teased out. In Dark Souls, the combat might at first appear to be slow, especially when compared to some hack-and-slash contemporaries that might appear to be similar on the surface. But a hack-and-slash mentality will only lead to a swift death. Dark Souls is instead defensive, methodic. Players will be rewarded for playing it cautious, learning enemy attack patterns, mastering the timing of the parry, the technique of the backstab, and using the environment to their advantage. Monster Hunter is the closest comparison that I can draw, but the comparison still draws a little short. Every battle with every enemy is one that could end your life if you aren't paying full attention. But the game has always been fair. It follows its own rules. When you die in Dark Souls, it's almost always entirely your own fault. But it's the way that Dark Souls treats death and failure that really sets the game apart. In so many games, death is a punishment of failure. You lose a life, you sit through a drawn-out death scene, you reload the game save and sit through loading screens. It's a terrible feeling. And while death and failure in Dark Souls still doesn't feel great, the turnaround time from death to playing again is measured in seconds rather than minutes. When you die, you lose the souls you were carrying, but if you were able to make it to where you died last time without dying, you can even recover what you lost. But if you die again, it's gone forever. This mechanic raises the stakes and really encourages the player to improve, learn, and strategize more effectively. In this, the game trains the player to be a better player through positive reinforcement rather than rubbing their noses in their failures. After all, that's what invaders are for. Dark Souls has this interesting online mechanic in which players can temporarily interact with other active players. The most common ways to interact are through orange message signs, where players can leave hints, stories of success, and sometimes humorous quips. Sometimes the advice they dispense can be invaluable, other times, not so much. At other times, you might see bloodstains on the ground, which, when activated, will show you a ghostly vision of the last few moments of a recently deceased player, providing hints for potential traps lying in wait. Sometimes players can summon white phantoms to assist with areas or boss fights. Oh, hey there, Jimmy. Didn't expect to see you here.
Oh, I knew it would only be a matter of time before you came crawling on your knees for assistance. After all, I'm practically a god in Dark Souls.
Sweet. Well then, let's get to it then.
Lead the way, my companion.
Charge!
Oh yes, SuperDerek. Soon you will recognize the greatness that is I, Jimmy Hapa. And you will rue the day you crossed it. Get ready to feel my balls.
Woo yeah! Now that's what I call teamwork, right Jimmy? Jimmy? Where did he go? So as you can see, summoning phantoms can really turn the tide when you're fighting against a particularly difficult boss. But other times, players might be invaded by dark phantoms, players from other worlds with an inclination toward PvP, who I simply refer to as invaders. Wow, Jimmy, thanks for your help with this review, man, showing everybody how invasions work. I have to admit, I'm actually pretty impressed you found a way to invade me.
Oh well, you know what they say. Where there's a will, there's a way. You backstabbing son of a bitch.
And that's how you get rid of invaders. Thanks again, Jimmy. These online mechanics range from kind of neat to indispensable to infuriating. Sometimes they're not the most reliable as far as online services go, but if and when these online services are no longer available, the game of Dark Souls will undoubtedly feel very different indeed. I don't often give too much of a spotlight to level or world design, as it seldom steals the show in quite the way that it has in Dark Souls, which is truly a testament to quality world design. The land is intricately interconnected. One could walk from one end of the land to the other without encountering a single loading screen if one could survive the trek. But what's impressive is just how well utilized the verticality of the land is, from the top of the highest towers of Anor Londo to the lowest depths of Ash Lake. You can almost always look upward or downward to see a completely different section of the game just waiting for you to explore. To say that the music of Dark Souls is a bit sparse is a bit of an understatement. When it comes to audio effects, you'll mostly be hearing ambient noises, the footfalls of a shambling enemy, the crackle of a bonfire, the clank of metal. But once in a while, the game shows us that what it lacks in quantity, the composers made up for in quality. The songs of the fight against the Moonlight Butterfly and the final boss are some real standouts. Visually, the game is great. There are the occasional glitches in the real-time shadows, and maybe the textures could be a little finer, but all in all, I've had very few complaints outside of some problematic areas of the game, mostly Blighttown, in which the frame rate took a hit depending on where you were looking. Dark Souls was released on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and PC, and has received a sequel, Dark Souls 2, with a third entry soon to be released. Complete copies of the game can be acquired for around $10, while limited editions run closer to $40 to $50. With the roots of the Souls series starting on the PlayStation 3, the community tended to be a little stronger on that platform, but this appears to be less of a factor as the popularity wanes. However, there are mods available for the PC version, which is almost always a good thing. However, with a console version, you're probably less likely to run into blatant hacking, so when choosing which one's for you, there's a lot to consider. Dark Souls is a game that rewards patience and dedication. If these are traits that you possess, then the land of Lordran is yours to conquer. It's clear that the game designers put a lot of thought and effort into the design of the game, and they took a lot of risks that not very many game development companies are willing to take these days. And I think that those risks paid off. and the result is an experience that's just unique to From Software. And for all of this, it's definitely got a spot in the game collection.
Oh, no you don't, Derek. Don't think you're getting away from me so easily.
What's going on, Jimmy? The review's over, man.
Oh, but that's where you're sadly mistaken. It's far from over. We have unsettled business, you and I.
We do?
February 3rd, 2015. Does that date mean anything to you? The Grand Stream Saga, you buffoon. My honor, forged in the traditions of my ancestors. You disgraced me. For a year now, I've lived with this humiliation. Now it's time you face my righteous indignation!
Hey everybody, before I go, I wanted to extend a special thank you to Sir Ignacio, Swiss Mocha Dad, Richie, and my Tom, who have all recently become patrons of mine over on Patreon, and along with all of my other patrons here who are scrolling, have been extremely helpful to me. I really appreciate everybody who's helped contribute to the show. It's been very helpful and very humbling as well. Again, thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.